What's up, RNA community? Thank you guys for joining us for yet another episode of Diving Deep into Entertainment. This is personally my passion project, so of course I'm the only one here. Things came up with some of the crew, so just because the schedule is, the show must go on. Today we're going to give you a pretty good episode from my perspective. If you're into the film industry, you're into the studios, you like to geek out about this mathematical shit, this is the episode for you. I'm going to try to keep it as entertaining as possible. This is going to be a short episode. I just got back from school, got to go to work in an hour, so this is going to be one of the shortest episodes we've done in a while, and we're going to do for a while, so stick with me on that. But today, for the 39th episode of Diving Deep into Entertainment, we're going to talk about where the studios ranked this year. I'm going to get a little into the details, stuff like that, but stick with me, and I hope you enjoy. If you're ever into movies, stuff like this is interesting. You notice why the logos are what they are. You notice why some studios seem to push out certain content while others don't, blah, 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 blah. But I just wanted to say, I'm going to do the top 7 studios, as they're called, the Big 7. There's really only Big 6. There might not be a Big 6 for long because Disney purchasing Fox, blah, blah, blah. But as of 2017, right, we got Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Fox, Sony, Lionsgate, and Paramount going from top to bottom. So I guess descending order, right? So I'm going to start. Actually, I'm going to go from the bottom up, right? Okay, so last was Paramount. They've had a rough stretch ever since they won the domestic box office in 2011. It's been going downhill, and I believe they haven't had $1 billion since 2011, and 2017 was their worst year. They came up short of $535 million domestically. Just to put that in perspective, Beauty and the Beast made that domestically alone, one film. So that's how bad it is. Paramount released 12 movies, and they only took up 4.8% of the share. None of the movies broke out, so it's no big deal, blah, 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 right? It's really sad because when you think about it, this is the studio that started the MCU. People forget that. They're the ones who released Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America. So yeah, we give credit to Disney, but they're the ones who got it going, so you have to respect that. In 6th place, who's become the new big studio, the 7th studio, which, by the way, we're going to talk about this probably next week, but there is actually consideration of them joining with another studio. So in less than a year, we might have 4 at max 5 big studios when there were 7. So just to put that out there. Lionsgate released 19 films. That took up 8% of the total domestic box office, where these films grossed $885 million, right? Now, to point out some noteworthy films, Wonder, John Wick 2, Hitman's Bodyguard, right? Now, Wonder is the only film that grossed $100 million domestically. Lionsgate only released 2 films that grossed $100 million. Or they only had 2 films that grossed $100 million in 2017. The other one is La La Land from 2016, which, by the way, guys, go see that. If you're into any type of storytelling, you don't have to be in musicals, you don't have to be into love stories, just straight up cinematic storytelling, that is that film. It is beautiful. And then if you're a sucker for love stories or musicals, then it's just a win-win. But yeah, Lionsgate having no what was it? No Hunger Games, no Twilight, no Divergent, $885 million. Impressive, right? 5th place is Sony. Now, this doesn't account for most of what Jumanji made, but still, Jumanji made around $170 million in 2017. But anyways, getting back, Sony grossed $1.06 billion domestically, 9.6% of the total domestic take. But this is the thing, they had 26 films. That's even more than Warner Brothers. And normally, Warner Brothers is the studio that's releasing the most films of the major studios in Hollywood, right? But yeah, 26 films. So it's very disappointing because they only had 3 films that grossed $100+ million. 2 of them did gross $150+ million, and then they had, of course, Spider-Man: Homecoming that grossed $300+. in 2017, right? Now, if you're talking about 2017 releases, when everything's said and done, Jumanji, man, we're going to talk about this next week. I think we're going to do some type of topic about the benefits of releasing a film over the holidays, particularly Christmas, right? Jumanji, holy crap, man, it's blowing up. But yeah, some of their noteworthy films, Spider-Man Homecoming, Jumanji, and Baby Driver. But besides those three films, those are the only three films that grossed $100+ million. So Sony this year was legit hit or miss. So there's that. Now, fourth place, and now this is where all the monopoly talk comes in because of Disney and Fox, right? Fox was fourth place. They released 14 films, and these films gross about $1.326 billion, or 12% of the total domestic take. Now, this is the impressive thing. This is why I always say Fox, more often than not, is the closest thing to Warner Brothers in terms of they release a diverse slate of films in numbers, right? This year it was only 14, so that's tied for third most, but last year they easily had second, right? No, actually Universal did, so okay, scratch that. But yeah, Fox is normally, they're the ones who release these gritty R-rated films, diverse slates, some of their noteworthy films. So listen to this: a superhero film in Logan, an animated film in The Boss Baby, and then a purely star-studded adult film in the Murder on the Orient Express, right? So they had 6 films, $100+ million, 3 films, $150+, but no film truly broke out. The only film that really broke out was Logan, and that was just an awesome film, right? So there's that. Now the top 3. Get used to this for the foreseeable future, especially if Fox gets purchased by Disney. Disney guaranteed number 1 every single year, domestically and especially foreignly. Because this list is only talking about domestic, but if we're talking about foreign, Fox, even though they're normally in the middle of the pack domestically, they're always top 3 foreignly, right? So that has numerous reasons for. The reason why I'm not including that in these rankings, because when it comes to foreign releases, most of the time a film never releases in 100% of the territories. And films like Jumanji and stuff, it's just hard to track, blah, blah, blah. So there's that's the reason. But getting back to it, right? Universal released 14 films, but they did pretty good in terms of total per film, or per average, right? Second only behind Disney, right? So they had 7 $100+ million films, 3 $150+, and 2 $225+. But they didn't have any film that broke the $300 million mark. That's why they're hovering around $1.5 billion, right? So these films grossed $1.53 billion, or about 14%, right? Despicable Me 3, Fate of the Furious, Get Out, Split, Girls Trip, 50 Shades Darker. The best way to put it, Universal normally makes hits out of films that are treated with less of a budget, right? So sorry about that if you heard that. But yeah, so Despicable Me 3, whatever. Fate of the Furious, whatever. The 2 top grossing films, right? 2 $200+ million domestically and $1 billion+ worldwide, but whatever. But Get In, Split Out, they killed it with horror. Also, I didn't put this out there because it wasn't a breakout, but Happy Death Day, so they had a great year. Now the top 2. Warner Brothers, and you got Disney, right? Warner Brothers grossed for the second time in its studio history, and it becoming just the second studio ever with this milestone. It grossed over $2 billion domestically, accounted for 18.5% with 20 movies, right? So Warner Brothers, like every year, because they release so many films, is very hit or miss. They have sometimes most of their blockbuster films disappoint, and all their smaller scale films overachieve, vice versa, a combo. So this year was more so a combo where some of their big films completely overachieved, some of them underachieved, right? So that's why it's not as high as it could be, but they still got 7 $100+ million films, 6 $150+, and then 3 $225+. Now, of course, Justice League is the film that really botched Warner Brothers' year. This was a film that easily should have done 300, had a shot at 400, but for multiple reasons, it didn't work out, right? So that's why Warner Brothers per average is lower than it should, because Justice League, let's be real, it's a Justice League film. How it didn't even get close to 400 million, right? It's just mind-boggling. It didn't even get close to 300 million, so there's that. But yeah, noteworthy film. Just so I'm trying to get this into our listeners or viewers' heads. When you think of films, do you think of anything? Do you think of, oh, this is a certain director's film? Is this a certain actor, actress's film, right? Or, as I think of it those ways, but I also think of it, which studio is releasing this film, right? Because if you go down the list in the long history, you start to see a pattern, right? Paramount for a long time was the more commercial Warner Brothers. They would release character-driven films, but more with a commercial side, right? And then lately, they don't even have an identity, right? Lionsgate is for the gritty horror and black comedy. Sony, they're having an identity crisis. For the long time, they used to release a lot of films like a Jumanji, star-driven commercial films, right? So I just want to get you into this habit of looking, if you want to, whatever. But yeah, Warner Brothers this year released Wonder Woman, completely overachieved. It completely overachieved. That a horror film grossed 700 million. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, but our Twitter page tweeted about this, right? It finally hit 700+ million. And when you think about this, a horror film, a R-rated horror film, 700+, with actors, for the most part, nobody knows about, right? So just imagine in 2 years, good word of mouth, whatever happens in the home video scale, whatever you want to talk about, and then you add a freaking adult cast with the potential Jessica Chastains, the Idris Elbas, right? Do not be surprised if that goes bigger and better, right? Especially because that's the last film. There's only 2 parts, so why wouldn't people want to go see that? Okay? Now, of course, if it pisses people off like The Last Jedi, then, of course, that can determine stuff. But Dunkirk, right? Kong Skull Island, Annabelle Creation. There's also Justice League, stuff like that. But, yeah, I've always loved Warner Brothers because from square one. They released a R-rated comedy. They released an animated film. They released a straight-up PG-13 blockbuster like Kong. But then they released a R-rated blockbuster like Dunkirk, right? The list is just... But the consistent thing is they're director-friendly, they're actor-friendly, producer-friendly, they're talent-friendly. And more often than not, Warner Brothers, in terms of quantity and quality, gets the best people to work with them. For some time, Paramount was up there. They've fallen off, and Fox is always nipping at their heels with that, right? So, and then, of course, number one, Disney, Buena Vista, however you want to go about it, Walt Disney, whatever. Yeah, they grossed, for the 3rd consecutive year, $2+ billion, specifically $2.41 billion, off of 8 movies. Off of 8 movies, guys. Just what is going on here? When you think about it, they only had one movie that didn't gross 100+. That was new, right? And that was some Disney documentary. Like you know how they have the Disney nature films? I don't know what it was this year, but every year they've been doing that for like the past 5-6 years. But yeah, 8 films grossed $2.4 billion domestically alone. And of course, every film they released was 150+ million. So, like Cars 3, right? It technically bombed for Pixar standards, still grossed 300+ million worldwide. You got Pirates 5, which is the I can't remember the name. That film, forgettable. But Coco, you got Thor Ragnarok, you got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, you got Beauty and the Beast, which did suck, and then you got The Last Jedi. It's just... And this is why people talk about concern about the acquisition. Because think about this. If Disney owned Fox this year, they would have grossed domestically alone 3.7 plus billion, nearly 3.75 billion domestically. Just to put that in perspective, that's more than Sony, Lionsgate, and Paramount combined domestically. Or that's more than any one of those three studios grossed worldwide. This is domestically, just to emphasize that. So yeah, that's all I want to talk about. I just wanted to talk about how Warner Brothers, for the second time in its studio history, grossed $2 billion domestically. Only Disney has done that more. Only Disney has done it twice, really. And of course, it's because the last 3 years they've had a Star Wars film. People forget that. Take away Star Wars, it doesn't happen at least 2 of the 3 years, if not all 3, right? So yeah, but Disney, they're here to stay. $2.4 billion. And what do you think about this? Does any of this interest you? Of course, if you're not watching the video, you don't care. If you're watching this video, what interested you? Because I know this is a little geeky, nerdy, and stuff like that. But man, yeah, it's just sum it up. Paramount, what happened the past year and a half has been just god awful. Let's be real. Ever since 2015. It's terrible. It's really terrible. Lionsgate's impressive. They're basically making as much as they did when they were releasing Hunger Game and Twilight films, which is impressive on its own, right? Then you got Sony, which, came on late the past 6 months. It was very strong. Past 6 months, really strong. Fox, man, just... How do you guys feel about that? How do you feel about Disney owning Fox? Because I know we haven't really talked about that, but I just want to get some of your perspectives about that. Because, let this sink in. If this goes through, Disney will own the Pixar brand, the Marvel brand, the LucasArts brand, which is Star Wars, Indiana Jones. Then they will own the rest of the Marvel brand that Fox owns. They will own all the critically acclaimed films, mostly R-rated films from Fox Searchlight. That's the Alien. They will also own the Alien franchise, the Planet of the Apes franchise. Like, all of this under one studio. It's mind-boggling. I'm a little bit jealous here, but yeah. Universal keeps making hits out of films that technically don't belong in the hit category. And their year was dominated by Blumhouse and then Despicable Me and Fast and the Furious. 50 Shades Darker, though. Guys, don't fall on that. Can't even keep a straight face with that. Yeah, and Warner Brothers. I know Disney is doing its thing. I just want to put this on record. Warner Brothers, ever since about 1999, or basically when The Matrix released, has been the most consistent franchise. Consistent studio. My bad about that. So, ever since 1999, they've always been in the top 4 domestically, the top 4 foreignly. Ever since the first Harry Potter film, I believe 2001, they've been in the top 4 domestically, top 3 worldwide, and it's just, they're still competing. If you go through the records, man, like the past decade, it hasn't been lower than 3, and I geek out over stuff like when you go through the history. Like Disney, you go through the history, they're known for their animated films. Yeah, like take away this Marvel, Star Wars bullshit. They're basically known for Walt Disney and their animated films, right? Fox is... I can't think of what Fox is really known for off the top of my head, besides like the critically acclaimed Oscar films and stuff like that. But Warner Brothers, you go down the list. Warner Brothers built their empire in the late 20s, early 30s off of innovation and putting out films most companies wouldn't put out. And you go through the history books. Basically, every single year, they're putting out the most films and the widest variety. And there's the reason why, for the longest time, they were called the Dream Factory, even though Disney has somewhat taken that away just because of all the properties they own. But yeah, it's just, if you guys ever want, of course, when other people are around, because Jordan is really into film, he has good expertise. Damon, he has good taste, so that would be a good conversation to have. If you guys would ever want us to make a topic, let's say once a year we have a dive, we dive deep into any one of these studios, let us know, because it'll be interesting. Because, like, for example, Lionsgate, it technically owns all Summit films now, right? Summit is Twilight. That's what they're known for. Sony owns Columbia. And most people don't realize that most of Sony's major blockbuster films are produced under the Columbia banner or division, however the technical term is. Like Jumanji, Columbia, right? Spider-Man, Columbia. All of those are Columbia films. Most of Sony stuff comes on the lower budget stuff where you got the grindhouse films and the comedies and stuff like that. But yeah, and Warner Brothers, they own, Time Warner owns New Line. New Line is Lord of the Rings. Most people don't realize that even though Warner Brothers wasn't getting credit for the Lord of the Ring films and stuff, Time Warner was still profiting. So, when did the first Lord of the Rings come out? 2000, was it 2000? So, from 2000 to 2003, they had 3 Lord of the Ring films and 2 Harry Potter films. It's just, man, it's crazy. The only studio that can compete with Disney from a brand perspective is without a doubt Warner Brothers, just because they have the most recognizable brands, they have the consistency, stuff like that. Okay, we're getting long in the tooth. Let me know how you guys feel about this. Just, does any of this make sense to you? What do you think about it? Just like, forget it, don't ever do this again, blah blah blah. Just hopefully next time I would do something like this, there would be other people around. But yeah, I find it interesting because everything's a pattern, right? You go to sports, New England Patriots, they have a pattern of overachieving, taking what most people would say an average player and making them good, if not great, right? Or I can't think of any other comparison to that. But like, no matter where you look, or like a company like Apple, right? Amazon, there's a pattern of what they go about, right? Movie studios is no different. There's no different. Of course, there's peaks and valleys and there's identity changes, but that's what fascinates me about studios like Fox, Warner Brothers, Disney, even Universal. For the most part, they really haven't changed it up, right? So it's just fascinating. And the movies speak for themselves, either critically, commercially, genre-wise, right? So the only thing I can say is, let me know, does any of this surprise you? Do you want foreign totals next time? What's your favorite studio, man? Because most people don't realize, like, the average moviegoer, their favorite studio is probably Disney, right? Or, if you're into R-rated films, it might be Warner Brothers and Fox. It's just, the most iconic thing to me about going to the movie theaters and watching movies is that opening scroll. And you have Disney's castle. And by the way, over the years, it's gotten bigger and better and more detailed, right? Or Fox's drum with the lights, right? Classic. That's what most people think of when they think of Star Wars. Of course, with the opening scrolls. And then Warner Brothers, it's simple yet elegant. They have that. They have the close-up of the movie, of their movie productions, right? Like the buildings, all the buildings in gold, and then as the video is coming out, you see the WB, man, WB, and then they got that piano, that 5-second piano playing in the background. It's a beautiful thing. But we had something planned. We apologize about that. We're going to push it back a couple weeks. Next week, we're probably going to do something about the benefits of holiday releases, keeping that diving deep. If you're sick of movie topics, right? Give us some topics. Do you want us to do a music topic? We could do some research. Do you want us to do a television topic, right? Let us know. I'm more than down for that. I love entertainment. I love art, right? So just let us know. Let me know how you felt about this episode. Did I miss anything? You're like, yo, Francis, you didn't go deep enough. It's like, yo, man, I didn't go deep enough. I really didn't. I thought this might bore you, so I just put domestic. You feel me? But, okay, I'm tired, really tired. So I think that's it. Thank you, guys. By the way, I probably didn't introduce myself. I'm just running on full cylinders. My name is Francis. Thank you guys for joining us. This was the 39th episode. We hope to see you for number 40. And one last thing. Go see Den of Thieves, guys. Den of fucking Thieves. Right now it has a 35% bullshit. We might have to do a topic about that one day, man. Why are critics so inconsistent? One critic with one film will say, this film was not different enough. And then the very next film he reviews, he says, oh, this film is too similar to other films. And it's just, what the make up your... Oh, man. Critics. That's why two things. You always look at the average score on Rotten Tomatoes. Don't look at the Rotten Tomato meter, because it's misleading. And, yo... if a film looks interesting, go see it, man, because that's the number one thing you have to remember with reviews. They're done by people, and people are just too inconsistent, man. Too inconsistent. But I'm going to let you guys go. This is running a little long for the situation. But, yeah, thank you, guys. This was talking about where the studios ended up in 2017, and the top three was, shocker, Disney, Warner Brothers, and Universal. It's been like that for the past... counting 2017, 3 years, and especially if Fox disappears, it's going to be like that for the next couple decades, unless something major happens. But yeah, thank you. Leave any comments, feedback. The whole like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. I'm not into that crap, but the links are below. There's many ways of contacting us. Contact us. And thank you, new subscribers. We're up to 66. Wow, can't believe that, right? But thank you, guys. See you next week on Diving Deep into Entertainment. Peace out, everybody. So, if you want to subscribe, just hit this bad boy up here, that big fat rhino. If you want the newest video, to the right. If you want the recommended, to the left. And then, of course, our personal dick pic. Yep, right below. So, thank you for joining us once again, and we hope to see you next week. So, peace out.
Peace.